Good afternoon, and welcome you all to the Center for Sustainable Cities forum on Earth Day forum on California's renewables policy. My name is Hilda Blanco, and I will be your MC today. It is my pleasure, first of all, to introduce Dean Jack Knott, who will open the forum with welcoming remarks. Dean Knott is the Piper Dean and Professor of the Sol Price School of Public Policy at the University of California. And I'm very pleased that he's here, especially because he's a great supporter of the center and of our work. Here he is. Thank you.
Well, I'm actually the Dean of the University of Southern California. And I'm a graduate of the University of California. I don't know if you picked that up in what Hilda said, but I have loyalties to both as a result. So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Sol Price School of Public Policy, I really would like to welcome you, each and every one of you, to this Earth Day Forum. And I'm really pleased that you could join us today as we address the progress and challenges involved in California's renewable portfolio standard. And some of you may have attended our climate change forum in the fall. At that time, we were, as you know, still known as the USC School of Policy Planning and Development. But in the meantime, we received a $50 million naming gift and endowment from the Price Family Charitable Fund to honor the life and legacy of Sol Price, who was the founder and entrepreneur who founded Price Club, which eventually merged with Costco. So he was a real leader in the retail industry, but also somebody very active in public policy, and he cared a lot about cities and urban areas, and he's, through his Price Family Foundations, has invested a great deal of money, especially in San Diego, but also in the Urban Institute nationally, looking at sustainable approaches to especially low-income urban communities. So in a way, though, today is a very special day because it marks the first Center for Sustainable Cities Forum under our school's new name. So I'm happy about that. Before I begin, I'd like to take just a few moments to acknowledge and recognize a few individuals, and I want to start with Dr. Hilda Blanco, who is the interim director of the center. Hilda's been doing a great job, and we're really pleased to have her here and provide leadership for the center. So I'd like to just give a round of applause to Hilda for her work for the center. And I've heard her speak a few times, and I know she's very passionate about sustainability. So for her, it's more than just kind of an intellectual pursuit. I think it's part of her values and something she really believes in and part of her life. And I'd also like to thank Southern California Edison, as well as HSBC Bank for their generous support of today's forum. Without this kind of support, we obviously can't put on these events. So Don, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate your support of the forum. In addition, I hope, I don't see everybody here, but we're supposed to be joined by several of our board members. We have a board of advisors to the center, and I'd like to recognize them as a group. I'm going to just call off their names. I'm not sure if they're all here, but Con Howe, who's the managing director of CityView, Aaron McConaughey, who is the principal of Arup. Yep, okay. Mark Musgrove, I just met Mark, Global Communications Director for Cisco. And Carolyn Ramsey, the Los Angeles Program Director for the Trust for Public Land. So thank our board members also for participating with the center. Thank you. Now, the Center for Sustainable Cities is one of the newest research centers at the school. Yet it is also one of the most interdisciplinary and cross-cutting centers that we have. In many ways, it touches on almost all of the areas that the school is involved with. We have programs in urban planning and real estate, and land use, and sustainability and planning, and it obviously touches on all those areas. But we also have programs in public policy, and we also train leaders in the public and nonprofit sector. And those leaders and those programs also care a great deal about sustainability. And so it really touches across our school. And yesterday we did a forum a Dean Speaker Forum that focused on the future of California, and part of that was focused on the changing demographics of California, because we have in the school a population dynamics research group, and even that, the changing population dynamics in the state and the world has a huge impact on sustainable cities. And indeed, since most people in the world now live in cities, and a lot of these cities are global mega cities. I just got back not that long ago from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and you get to see the South American version of Los Angeles and how large and impactful these cities are. This topic is hugely central to everything that we do. So the center focuses on policy and planning to improve urban sustainability and holds public forums twice a year, such as this, to discuss key topics on these issues. And we're excited to host an event like this, which promotes important dialogue and hopefully fosters innovative solutions and approaches to deal with the sustainability issue. And we look forward really to engaging with you through our future panel discussions and events. In recognition of the state's, of California's leadership, really in the nation, in energy policy, this year the Earth Day Forum focuses on California's renewable portfolio standard, key legislation that has set an aggressive target of 33% renewable energy by the year 2020. And our panelists include an expert group, including industry officials, utility administrators, national experts, and also our own faculty knowledgeable about this policy and its implementation. So I hope you find today's discussions both insightful, thought-provoking, but also practical, that might lead to some new innovative approaches to the issue of sustainability and renewables. So thank you all for attending. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Knott, for taking the time from a packed schedule to participate in our event. I really appreciate it. As Dean Knott indicated, California is at the forefront of renewable energy policy in the U.S., and we're very pleased to present this forum on California's Renewable Portfolio Standard, commemorating Earth Day today, even though it's a little bit beyond Earth Day. On our program today, though, we have two panels of experts on this topic who will discuss actions to advance the state policy, including the administrator for the state's largest power municipal utility, Mr. Benjamin. We're very pleased to have you here. And two representatives from Southern California, Edison, one representing the wholesale side and the other the retail side. Don Vawter and Gary Barsley. Thank you very much. And of course, Southern California Edison is one of the three major utilities in the state, so we're looking forward to their comments. We have Dr. Jeffrey Greenblatt from Lawrence Berkeley Lab, who will discuss the latest research and how to move us beyond even the 2020 targets that the state has set. And we also have a representative from leading solar industry, Cecilia Guillan, and we're very, very pleased to have you here. And also moderating the second panel, Laura Berland-Shane from Siemens will be here. And I also want to thank our own faculty, Professor Chris Weir, who is a state policy expert, and Professor Adam Rose, who is an expert on climate change and in particular cap and trade. And we're very pleased that he will review other states' renewable policy standards and their implementation. Now, we don't want to spend too much time on introductions, but Professor Chris Weir will lead our first panel. And then we will have a break after the panelists have a chance to make comments, and we entertain questions and answers. After the break, the second panel, and then we will have a reception after that. So I hope that you will stay for all of that. Today, I'm especially pleased to be here and participate on a panel to comment on land use conflicts real and potential related to solar and wind energy, because my career in city and regional planning started with a contribution on this topic. My professional project in the early 1980s was on solar and wind energy prospects for San Francisco. My work at that time served as the background report for San Francisco's first energy policy, one of the first cities in the country to incorporate an energy policy as part of its general plan. And several of the issues I examined in that professional project, especially the topic of solar access, are still live topics today. So it's a retrospective for me as well, and it shows that we are still engaged in trying to ensure that renewable energy becomes an important part of our electricity portfolio. I won't say much about RPS because Don is going to give us a brief overview of it, but the state's portfolio standard goes back to 2002 when the state first determined that it needed to change its energy portfolio to include more renewables. And I'm pleased to say that according to California Energy Commission reports, in 2010, about 16% of the state's energy came from renewables, and the state seems to be on target to meet its first intermediate target of 20% renewables by 2013, which is very impressive. But now I would like to have Chris come and make a brief introduction of the panelists.
First, I'd like to thank Hilda. I used to do a lot of work on electricity regulation, but when I used to study it, there were blackouts and bankruptcies, so it's nice to be studying something a little bit more positive today. We're going to be taking a number of different perspectives on implementing renewable portfolio standards. Unfortunately, Paul Douglas, who runs the Renewable Portfolio Program at the California Public Utilities Commission, wasn't able to come. But Don Vawter has ably been willing to step in, and he will give an overview of this program for all of us. And then Aram Benjamin is going to talk a little bit more of the perspective of the utility and how it impacts their ability to do their energy planning and generation planning. And then Adam, who does a lot of work on the design and evaluation of environmental policies, will give us a broader perspective looking at how these have affected economic efficiency and other outcomes in a variety of states. So let me start with Don.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here to share with you a little bit about the new recently enacted RPS bill and how SCE is taking on that challenge. Let me get the how this thing works here a little bit. Okay. Basically, the new recently enacted RPS bill steps up California's RPS goal from 20% to 33% by 2020. And it does that in basically 3 phases, and you can do that in 3 different ways. And these ways are called, or through, not 3 different ways, but 3 different products. And each of these products we refer to as a bucket, and you can think of them as sort of the gold standard, the silver standard, and the bronze standard, and sort of in that order. So the first phase is compliance period 1, where load-serving entities, such as Southern California Edison, need to have, on average, 20% of their retail sales filled by renewable energy. SCE is currently at 19.2, and we are clearly on our way to meeting that goal for compliance period 1. In compliance period 2, the end of compliance period 2, you need to be at 25%. If the wind blows like we think it's going to blow and the sun shines like we think it's going to shine, Edison has already procured the projects and the products it needs to meet that goal as well. And then by 2020 and annually thereafter, 33% of your retail sales need to be served by renewable electric energy. So retail sales meaning for the kilowatts that come to your home and to your business that is provided by Edison, for which you pay a bill. That is our retail sales, and it's 33% of that that needs to be filled by electric energy, renewable electric energy. Okay, the first bucket is sort of the gold standard, which primarily that means it's a project located in California or directly connected to a load serving or balancing authority of California. And balancing authorities being like LADWP, the Cal ISO, etc. So that's by far the majority of all bucket one products meet that definition. There's some other sort of exceptions, but I won't talk about those too much. One is dynamic transferring. That's only a pilot right now and is not widely available to out-of-state projects. And the other one is you're outside of California, but you have certain transmission rights directly into California, and that makes up a pretty small sliver of that overall gold standard bucket one. Bucket two is firmed and shaped products, which means it's an out-of-state project that is importing its energy into California, but the nature of renewables is that they're intermittent and they're variable. The wind blows, the wind doesn't blow, the sun shines, then it doesn't shine. And to come across what's called the interties that connect different balancing authorities, so balancing authorities that are not California balancing authorities connecting to California balancing authorities, you need a very predictable, steady state flow of electrons. So you can, what they call firm and shape that product, which is you schedule a certain amount of power across the intertie, and as much as that as you can produce because the wind is blowing and the sun is shining with renewables, and the balance is made up by non-renewable. And because that is not a purely renewable product, and it's sort of a silver standard. And even when you do that, the electrons that are not renewable still don't count, but it's still sort of a second tier product that you can use to some limited amount to meet your goals. And then the bronze standard is the bucket three, which is unbundled renewable energy credits. By and large, that means any renewable asset in the western, connected to the western regional electric grid can supply RECs to California load serving entities to meet their goals in a limited amount. So a wind farm in Idaho is selling its energy into the Idaho energy market, but there's not a market there for green, or there's not a premium paid there for the green attributes of that electricity. Well, he can then sell those RECs separately to a load serving entity in California that is governed by the bill, and that utility or load serving entity then can apply that towards its goals. Also, again, in a limited amount. And these buckets have limitations. Basically, during the first compliance period, which is 2011 to 2013, half of your quota or your goal can be met, must be met by the gold standard bucket one product. Up to 25% can be met with the bronze product or the bucket three unbundled RECs. And the balance between 1 and 3 is always what is allowed for the bucket 2 or the silver. That's just how it came out in the legislation. Don't ask me why. But in the second compliance period from 2014 to 2016, the gold standard ramps up to 65%. The bucket 3 decreases to 15%, and the balance bucket 2 decreases by 5 to 20%. And then finally, when we're fully ramped into the RPS legislation and meeting our goals at the 33% by 2020, a minimum of 75% of your energy going towards your goal must be the gold standard. So it's all about generally renewable projects in California. There are exceptions around that, but that is the emphasis, and that's how they ramp us in, and that's how we end up getting there. And focusing on California and the benefits that has to California, both environmentally and economically. Okay, on to the next slide. SCE delivers more renewable energy than any company in the United States and has for a number of years. In fact, we deliver more renewable energy than 48 out of the 50 states. Our mix is shown in the pie chart there. By and large, we do almost half by geothermal. Wind takes up about 35%. Biomass is a small sliver. Solar PV is a small but growing very, very rapidly portion of our portfolio mix. And while we are at 20% of our retail sales right now is 15.5 billion kilowatt hours per year, you can see how the increase from 20% to 33% is not just a simple 13% increase. We have to nearly double the amount of renewable energy we procure and distribute. So we need to go from 15.5 billion kilowatt hours per year to 28.3 to meet the goals. There at the bottom, it just shows how we are a big player, the biggest player in the renewable energy procurement and delivery space. Okay, on the next slide. The majority of our procurement comes from in-state generators, which means the majority of our procurement qualifies as the gold standard bucket 1. Most of our procurement comes from new renewable energy facilities, as it must, as the goal increases by literally 83 to 85%. That's going to require more and more new projects to be built. Competition drives growth in renewables. In our 2011 solicitation, we received over 400 unique project bids, and those 400 projects were bid in over 1,400 different ways to us. And that is an open solicitation where the mandates or the regulation is at its lightest. So these are utility scale projects. It's basically a bid your project, bid it the most aggressive way you can, and we will take into account the costs and the benefits, net those together, and then we rank your projects, and we then go out and we proceed to try to contract with the best based on what our high needs case is. So however many projects that takes, then we initiate negotiations with those projects. But as you can see, competition and open bidding and light regulation works well. There are other ways we procure. There are feed-in tariff programs, bilaterals, which is a party comes to us with a project. It's outside of a solicitation. It's outside of one of the 3 feed-in tariff programs, and we have some very compelling reason to go ahead and engage with them. We do that, but that's sort of an ever-shrinking amount. We're pushing more and more and more into competitive solicitations. So RPS solicitations for utility scale projects is by far and away how we procure most of our renewable generation. Back to the feed-in tariffs, there's 3 different kinds. There's the solar program, which is basically rooftop solar by and large, and we'll talk more about that later today. There's the renewable auction mechanism, which is from 1 to 20 megawatts. That is also a competitive solicitation, as is the solar SPVP as well. Then there's CREST, which is for very small generators of any technology. Now that is not a competitive solicitation. Those are administratively set prices, which we're not big fans of. But there it is. We do what the stakeholders of California want us to do. And in the backup, I don't know how we are for time, is just if you have access to this, you can see a quick sort of bullet highlights of the 3 feed-in tariff programs, what their limits are, et cetera, and a quick overview of our utility scale RPS solicitation process. So thank you. Any questions?
Where are the PowerPoints available?
Are they made available to?
Yeah, we can make them available, and also the entire program is being videotaped, and it will be available for YouTube as well on our website.
Do you want questions now, or do you want to wait for the panel?
If there are any specific questions about this presentation, why don't we take them now, since we have a little bit of time, and then otherwise we can bring in the entire panel later on.
Yeah, if you could go back to the pie chart that showed the share of renewables by type, I'm just curious where you see the growth is almost doubling to mostly be focused.
It is definitely in the solar PV space. In this last solicitation where we had the 400 different offers bid 1,400 different ways, solar PV dominated that solicitation handily. No other technology was competitive. Now, there's a couple of things going on. One is panel prices, silicone prices are falling. There are some people who are doing integration plays where they manufacture or have some business relationship with the manufacturer of the panels and are bidding them at prices that other bidders can't do. And then not the least of which is the ITC and the PTC incentives that are currently available to solar PV through 2016. Yes?
Yeah, out of all the solicitations, what is the rate of actual deployment, at least at that time? Because I keep hearing that the bids coming low, and I mean, not just in the US, but also like happened in China in 2 years ago, and then projects didn't get built, so we have hiccups here as well. So I just wanted to know specifically for so-called Edison, what is your rate of actually deployment?
For any project that is not built that we contract with, the portfolio of those projects, those are new projects, contracted but not built, we assume a 60% success rate, in other words, a 40% mortality rate. And we continue to contract and procure based on that failure rate, or a presumed failure rate, and then we adjust as we move forward. Yes?
You mentioned the solar PV rooftop feed-in tariffs. Is there a source for pricing on that?
Yes, it's the it's called the market reference price. Oh, I mean CREST or SVP PV? I mean SPVP. I'm sorry, was it?
Yeah, solar.
This, that is a competitive solicitation. So when we are we have a 125 megawatt target of these small generators to get into contract over 5 years. And so on a regular basis, we will take those, we will open that solicitation and take those bids, then we will rack those up and take the winners. So there's not a administratively set price for that program.
I'll ask one question. You touched on the idea that the utilities have to be able to adjust their load for the differing demands all throughout the day, and that you can't count on wind and solar power to be there in any single way. So what is the backup, and how is this affecting the total amount of generation that you have to have available if you can't count on all of it at all times?
That's a pretty complicated topic. I'll give you the high-level overview, is that as you put more and more renewables on the line, some argue that they integrate themselves. So the wind may not be blowing over here, but it's blowing over there, and the sun shining over here, but not over there, et cetera. And so there's a certain amount of that can be counted on all the time, even though all of it's renewable. But then you get at some part of the strata where it is highly variable. And right now, with the installed generation we have in state, our ability to import, those sorts of things, we are integrating the renewables currently without, I wouldn't say without any problem. There are certainly issues and challenges in the day-ahead market, and there are challenges in the real-time market, and scheduling all of that. But it's a system that is generally working. Now, when you double the amount, or nearly double the amount of renewable generation, that is now can be highly variable. There are different opinions as to how well or how poorly that's going to work. Basically, you know, what's needed is flexibility. There needs to be two things: gas-fired generation that's highly flexible, clean, do a lot of ramping, start up from dead cold, full load very quickly, and we need renewables that can control their ramp-ups, which means we need solar PV. If the cloud passes and the sun then hits the panels again, there needs to be a way to clip that power. The wind gusts, there needs to be a way to clip that power, because when those spikes hit, something has to reg down that quickly, and that's where the biggest challenges are right now. Now, in the future, in 8 years from now, you know, we're going to have challenges, but the answer is renewables that can better blend into what the market needs to the degree they can. If they have storage components to them, great. And then you're going to need gas-fired generation that's able to take the swings, or dispatchable load. It goes on and on.